All right, everyone, welcome back in to another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast on a Victory Monday today. It is Brian Hines from Pat's Pulpit, joined as always by Alex Barth from 98.5 The Sports Hub. And the Patriots have got in the win column for the first time this season with a 15-10 victory over the New York Jets on Sunday, and it was the rock fight that we expected in a rainy and windy MetLife Stadium. It wasn't always pretty at times, but they got the win, 1-2, and kind of saved their season here early on.
Yeah, Escape from New York. It wasn't always pretty. It's funny. I think you could argue in some ways, just pure performance, it was their worst game of the year. I think there were certainly moments where they played better against the Eagles, against the Dolphins, but they had to win it. They won it. That's kind of divisional football too, right? Like you see it all the time with these teams, even if you think they're unmatched. And I think the Patriots and Jets are relatively close, but you see these teams that just know each other super well, and it comes down to the wire, even if you don't think it will. So that was a classic divisional AFC East football game. But yeah, like you said, most importantly, they got the win. They can move on from here. If they'd lost that one, it would have gotten really ugly. And when they needed to win it, they went out and won it.
Yeah, it was one of those where, like, I think we said Thursday, even if they were firing on all cylinders the first 2 weeks of the season, it was like one where you would expect it to be, especially
Yeah.
with the weather, like just one of those slow games, like they've played the Jets a lot in the past. But I thought one of the positives from the day was they finally got the run game going a little bit, right? 157 yards. They were 3.9 yards average, which is right outside that 4 yard average mark that David Andrews said after the game is kind of the sign of a good rushing attack. So good to see that run game kind of clicking. I thought Zeke looked pretty good. And credit to Bill O'Brien there. They kind of ditched some of that zone stuff, a lot more under center looks, which helped lead to that big play action pass we can get to. But more of that downhill gap scheme, letting Ramondre, letting Zeke run downhill, and continuity on the offensive line, getting some guys back helped there too. But that run game kind of taking a step in the positive direction, especially against that Jets defensive front, was a good sign there from Sunday, I thought.
Yeah, I thought that's more what it should look like. More that traditional power run game. Loved the wrinkle of seeing Pharaoh Brown at fullback. I
Yep.
thought that was a nice thing to kind of shake things up. I thought Zeke looked excellent. I thought you saw flashes of like Dallas Zeke just in terms of he's not getting moved backwards, right? He reaches the tackler and then he's always falling forward. That hidden yardage you hear about. Even if it's 1 to 2 yards per carry, you carry the ball 20 times a game, that adds up. So I thought Zeke was excellent. I thought he was their better back in this game. But yeah, they were getting a push up front. They were moving the ball late in the game. They struggled a little bit trying to run out the clock there. Now, that may have been, I don't think that was entirely on the run game. But overall, I would say very encouraging sign because they need to be able to run the ball like that to be successful on offense. And like you alluded to, it's not just that running the ball makes you less one dimensional, right? And it helps you pick up some of those short yardage situations. You also saw how it can impact play action. I think being under center too, run or pass, was a big part of that. So this is kind of how the early season goes. This is part of the reason why Bill Belichick says September is a continuation of the preseason, whether you want to believe it or not, especially now when these guys don't play in the preseason. No team comes out with a plan in September, offense, defense, whatever. No team comes out with their plan in September and that's their plan all season. Some things are going to work, some things aren't, and you kind of adjust on the fly as you go. And I thought that's what this game was. I thought it was an encouraging sign for they tried certain things early on, first 2 weeks that didn't work. All right, let's move on from them. Let's adjust. Let's see how else we can make it work with this personnel group. And I think some of the stuff they did, again, in terms of under center, love the fullback looks. I think some of that stuff now you look for them to expand on it here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, the Pharaoh Brown look was really awesome because he obviously has like the size to be a good run blocking tight end. We saw some glimpses of that the first 2 weeks, and I think we even said like let's get him in that some 12 personnel looks more just as a run blocking tight end, and they did that too. You know, he was out there in those 12s with either Gesicki or Henry, but that 13 package, whether it was just three inline tight ends or Farrow and that fullback, that was a really nice wrinkle. And you saw they hit, it was 6 straight runs out of that look, and they got some positive gains. And then you hit them with the play action, which was a really good design. You send Gesicki across the formation like they've done a few times. That occupies the post safety, and then no one goes with Pharaoh Brown up the seam, and he's chugging along there for the score. I think that was ESPN or Next Gen had like that was the fastest he's ever ran in one of his
Yeah.
receptions before. So just a really good wrinkle, and just keep building on that, right? As you just said, and you'd expect Bill O'Brien, now that he sees some of this stuff working, kind of keep leaning on that going forward,
Yeah.
especially because you got Dallas next week, but Arizona like ran the ball down their throats last week. They had a really good
Got to be able to run the ball again. Yep.
rushing attack. So you think Zeke might be in for a big revenge game?
I'd love to see it. That would be a ton of fun if he goes back in there and he beats up on him. I think that'd be great.
Do they still have the Salvation Army kettle there or
They
bin?
only usually do that around Christmas, so I can't
Okay.
imagine it'll be out this early. But I like where your head's at.
That would have been an awesome shot. Him in
Yeah.
the Pats jersey in that red Salvation Army bin. But what else? O'Brien, some good things in the run game, but what'd you think of his kind of game plan elsewhere? I know there were those some questionable third down calls to Juju. I think the second one was a good design, but the Jets kind of switched. They kind of banjoed the coverage there,
Yeah.
and it was a good play with them. And the other thing I had like those third down screen passes, especially those double screen passes, like the defenses are just sniffing those out. Like I don't think those are working. I get you just want to pick up a few yards, but I just don't think those screens are really, you know, doing what they're supposed to be doing right now. One almost led to an interception at one point. So, what do you think of kind of those and from O'Brien overall besides the run game?
Yeah, it was hit and miss. I thought some of the designs were nice. I thought the play they got Pop Douglas open on down the field, it was a good design. By the way, Pop Douglas played not as much as I would have liked him to, but he
Yeah,
played, so that's good. I didn't love the end of half executions, both of them. I thought they had like a 3rd and 2, looking at a 59-yard field goal with a timeout. You can attack the middle of the field, and O'Brien goes to the QB sneak to say, I guess 57 yards is technically more makeable than 59. And Brian, we both like Chad Ryland, but in those conditions, that's a big ask.
yeah,
And he ends up missing the kick. At that point, I feel like just throw it. I'm not saying down the field, like down to the red zone, but can you throw the ball 5-10 yards over the middle of the field, get down, and turn 57 into 47? And I'll take the risk that comes with that, as opposed to just getting the 2 yards and turning 59 into 57. Right. So I didn't love that. And then, yeah, just those looked like one read throws. The two at the end of the game there to Juju, the 2 third downs. I'd give Mac more, and maybe Mac got it out quick, but I didn't think he was rushed.
yeah,
He wasn't under pressure a ton in this game. He was, but not as much as you maybe think against the Jets front. Those felt like one read throws. I don't like force. I get it. Juju's a high paid wide receiver and all that. I don't love forcing the ball to him in those situations. And he hasn't been good in those situations. He didn't get open this week. Remember, he ran short of the sticks in week 1. I would have done something else. I would have gone a little deeper in the bag than that.
yeah. I just don't like those kind of 50-50 balls on like a third and gotta have it, right?
Yeah.
I think none of them were that like 3rd and 6 was one of them, and trying to find it. I think there might have been both 3rd and 6s. So just dial up like a short little chain mover, get Demario Douglas, get Kendrick Bourne in there. I'd rather do that than one of those 50-50 balls.
Or
But
that to me is where you run the screen, because
yeah,
worst case scenario, the clock keeps running, and that was the whole thing. They allowed the Jets to keep that one timeout. If the clock's still running on either, I guess they weren't calling timeouts on the first sequence, but if the clock's still running on that second one, even if you don't get the first, the Jets don't have the timeout. They don't even get to attempt that Hail Mary. They probably end up doing some sort of lateral play or whatever. So, yeah, I didn't love the management from O'Brien at either of the halves. Yeah, besides that, I thought he was fine. Again, there were some interesting designs in there. I wouldn't say it was this revolutionary game plan, but yeah.
yeah. I thought the big things were in the run game, but especially in those conditions, you'll just kind of see how they move forward there. But you mentioned Juju. I think that's one of the big storylines here. Another real quiet day. 1 catch, 3 targets, 5 yards. He also had that kind of completely unnecessary blindside block
Stupid penalty.
that backed up near their own goal line. The penalty backs them up, and then they had two other false starts there. Just keep getting in their own ways. But I mean, he's been really quiet, and he was out there 74% of the snaps. You mentioned Douglas briefly there. He only played 17 snaps, which was 24%, but it was a lot of like third downs. He was out there for that final 2 minute drill of the second half, but you're just not seeing what you expected when you signed Juju to be this kind of, the yak guy, right? More explosive than Jacoby Myers. He's going to make plays when he gets his hands on the football after the catch, but you're not seeing that. He doesn't look as explosive, and it just hasn't been, the return on investment you've been hoping for through 3 games. And I don't know if you're kind of running out of time here to have that kind of hard conversation that we just kind of have to move you to the side. And maybe I know we were both saying like keep playing Pop Douglas, maybe Keishon Boutte even, who was a healthy scratch, maybe he even gets more looks here at some point. But whether it's just the knee with Juju or the chemistry with Mac is off, just something that isn't clicking, and it hasn't been a good start for that contract.
Yeah, you're getting to the point where whenever any big name Patriots free agent signing isn't panning out, people like to point to Steph Gilmore in 2017, right? Where he was horrible those first 4 games, goes on IR, comes back, and was just a completely different player. And it was just, he was able to go in, kind of study, catch up on where he needed to be. And you can bring that up, and that's fair. But let's think of the last few times we've brought that up. We brought that up with, I mean, the big one was Jonnu Smith. I remember saying that with Jonnu Smith a ton. I remember, people brought that up with, and I'm blanking on other ones, but like, I think Jalen Mills is another one. Yeah, it's generally you'd see some sort of impact from a guy like this by now, and you haven't. And I think I am starting to get a little worried that he's going to be a miss, because if they missed on him, they're in a tough spot. I mean, not that they haven't been, but you're talking about a lot of moves. You're going to need to get creative at the wide receiver position, because you can't, at least one more year, you can't get out of that contract. So you're going to have him. Tyquan has no more guaranteed money, but he's still under contract. You have Parker on the extension. He hasn't been outstanding either. And then you have Douglas, who they might not trust, for better or worse. They should trust him, but they don't. And Keishon Boutte, who they're healthy scratching, and they may not trust him either. So you sign Juju to kind of carry this group through a transition, and that's what we thought Jacoby would be if he stuck around. And it's looking like that might not happen.
Yeah, and didn't help that Jacoby had an awesome game Sunday night either yesterday.
No, another good game.
Yeah, that toe tap along the sidelines just was pure Jacoby.
Yeah,
that was sweet. So I forget who tweeted it out, but someone said like, how do you move on from Jacoby Myers and get less explosive on offense? It was
right.
it was interesting there. So yeah, not a great start from Juju. You mentioned Parker. He was quiet, 2 catches, 19 yards. I know we kind of like that matchup against the shorter DJ Reed. He kind of bullied him for one slant, but it was like 3 yards, and then he had that nice third down conversion. But I don't know if that was just kind of the weather wasn't, helping him. Wasn't maybe a day for 50-50 jump balls down the field, but another quiet day from him. Bourne, 4 catches, 46 yards. He had a nice third down conversion on beating Sauce late in the game. But any other kind of thoughts from the receivers there? I know it was just like Pharaoh Brown's your leading receiver with 71 yards, but just one of those games.
Yeah, I thought Kendrick Bourne had a good game. Yeah, it's pretty much it on the receivers.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on Mac? Because I know we're just going to keep saying one of those games, but, turnover free. I thought he had some nice throws with velocity, like that one to Parker on the sideline on the third down. He had that one over the middle to Kendrick Bourne. And he's really, like, he's been money on the intermediate throws. He was 5 for 6, 125 yards, and the touchdown in that area. But I think the big problem, as it's been throughout the year, is they can't hit those long 20-plus deep passes. He was 0 for 5 on those yesterday. I think on the year, he leads the league with 16 attempts of 20-plus yards, but he's only completed 2 or 3 of them. So they just can't hit those kind of explosives that we've been looking for through the air. But What were your kind of total thoughts on Mac in the rain yesterday in MetLife?
I thought he was fine. Honestly, it's probably the worst game he's played this year, which isn't, if this is the worst game he plays all year, they're in great shape.
Yeah,
If he hits that throw to Demario Douglas, which there's pass interference there, I mean, blatantly pass interference, and the refs were not good in this
no,
game. They were brutal. Uh, but the reason that Douglas ends up colliding with Michael Carter is it's underthrown. If he puts that ball on him, he goes in for a touchdown, and Patriots probably run away with it. So he's got to work on that throw. Now, this is kind of a theme with him. His rookie year, the first few games, he was struggling to hit the deep ball, and then he kind of found it. Last year, they're throwing a ton of deep balls, so he was hitting on some, but you saw it kind of progress over the year. So I wonder if it's a rhythm thing. Maybe he gets it down a little bit later. He does need to get it down, but I don't think he was bad by any means. He's just kind of along for the ride, which is sort of what you expected in a game like that. He wasn't good. He wasn't bad. He just sort of just was there. It's in the
yeah,
passenger seat.
yep. But yeah, they gotta figure out, even if they could just hit like one or two of those deep passes a game, that would really do a
Yeah.
big thing for their offense and helping them move the ball. But the offensive line plays a big part in that, letting that kind of lawn stuff develop. We had a switch with Vidarian Lowe at right tackle over Calvin Anderson. Trent Brown was awesome yesterday. They left him one-on-one a lot, and I don't think he gave up a pressure on PFF. David Andrews was also really good. Cole Strange, he left in the third or fourth quarter. He hurt his knee, it looked like, but he had some trouble with Quinnen Williams, as you'd expect. But what'd you kind of take away from that kind of new look and healthy offensive line against the Jets?
Yeah, it still wasn't great. I said I thought they pass protected okay. This was another one where they were calling around the offensive line a lot. It looked better than it was because they were calling plays that made it look better. There were times where if you're running more advanced route patterns, which they need to get to, Mac probably gets pressured. He just didn't because he got the ball out quick, things like that. So Cole Strange gets benched against the Jets. They said it was a knee. I don't know. I didn't see him necessarily get any banged up, and he was having trouble. He was having a lot of trouble before that. So maybe his knee flared up, but I don't think it was he got hurt. He got pulled out of that game. Maybe it's because his knee injury from the summer was bothering him, but he gets pulled against the Jets again. Trent Brown was great. Outside of him, yeah, it's still very much a work in progress. It still looks like something they're going to have to work around.
So they were, when Strange went out, they were like looking at him on the sideline, and he was going through like agility drills and taking like pass sets. And I think it was his other, I forget which knee he hurt in the training camp, but I think it was his other knee actually. So maybe
Okay.
looked like there actually was something there. I didn't see a play or anything that he hurt it, but it looked like there might have actually been something there. But yeah, Trent was really good at left tackle. Are you a fan of Lowe over Calvin Anderson here? Do you think that's going to be their path going forward?
They'll give him a shot. The expectations for him are low because he just got, no pun intended, because he just got here. And this is not to say he's a bad player. It's just he's really an unknown. He's barely played in the NFL. He's barely been in this system. He needs to be better than he's been. I don't know. I was talking to somebody about this earlier. The expectation of them having a good right tackle, I think just for what the roster is, may be too high. That's just a reality of where we are. That sucks, but that's just a reality. They just need somebody that's not going to be a disaster. And can Lowe be that? I think he can be. You go into the offseason, I don't think that he's like a long-term answer, but he was definitely better than Calvin Anderson, which at this point is something.
Yeah, yeah, he did. He struggled at times against that just dirty rotation of Jets edge rushers, but I thought he was decent in the run game. So yeah, maybe he's just that fine piece at right tackle that you could work around if the rest of your four are healthy and performing well. But that was another thing I wanted to give Bill O'Brien credit for, and I don't know if this is just how it shook out, but Quinnen Williams got hurt for like two plays, and the second that he went out is when they dialed up that play action shot to Pharaoh Brown. Maybe Jets lose their best interior rusher. Maybe we can let this play develop a little more, and they take their shot there with Quinnen Williams out of the game, and it worked out big for them. Lone touchdown of the game. So That was another thing I had note just for praise Bill O'Brien there. If that was by design and that kind of 13 personnel look, but anything else you had offensively? I believe we hit most of it there.
Yeah,
But
this is kind of a minor thing, and I wrote about this yesterday on 985thesportshub.com. You're still not seeing the running back, whether it's Zeke, whether it's Ramondre, as involved as a pass catcher. I think they've both been good in pass pro, but if they're going to have to dial up a lot of these quick plays, you want the running back to be involved as a pass catcher. At some point, I'd like to see Ty Montgomery get some
yep.
looks in the backfield, getting the ball thrown to him. And I'm not saying he has to dominate the usage, but give him a drive or two, or give him a couple third downs or something. I think you got to give him a look at this point in that role, because if they can get some, I'm not saying he needs to be James White, but if they can get something from that role in the pass catching game, I think will help them out quite a bit.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say because that's the role he had in training camp, and we all
Right.
sit there, look at him make play after play after play, and say, "Oh, we got their pass catching back here." And Mondre had that big third down drop where if he catches that out of the backfield and
Yeah, I bet you
turns,
can guess when I came up with this take.
yeah, that exact play. If he catches that and turns, it's probably like 30, 35, 40 yards, but he drops it and they have to punt. So I'd like to see Montgomery in that role. Again, it's always about health with him, but he's healthy right now. He's on the active roster, so why not, give that shot because he's performed there in training camp in that role. So maybe that's something that they tinker with moving forward. They'll need some points against Dallas this week, so maybe that's a look they kind of pull out of their bag for this game. But if that's all on the offensive side of the ball, we can hear from our wonderful friends over at Fanduel and head over to the defense.
All right. There it is.
Been to action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
All right, so it's a reoccurring theme defensively, but I think we always just have to start with Christian Gonzalez because another elite wide receiver going against another just awesome performance. He shadowed Garrett Wilson roughly 50% of the time, gave up 3 catches. I think 2 of those were like quick little screen passes, though, and he just continues to pass every test with flying colors, just living in his hip pocket basically throughout the game, making things really difficult. I get it, Zach Wilson, but watching him just cover these elite receivers, it's easy for him. And he had that other like pass breakup against Allen Lazard in tight coverage, so he just continues to be awesome to start the year.
There's a real argument to be made, Brian, if you think about it, that this was his easiest test of the year. We're talking about Gonzalez, and easiest doesn't mean easy. Garrett Wilson's a good player, a good receiver, but AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, you're talking about an all-pro and maybe the best receiver in the league, definitely top 3. And he handled it, and he was great. So, yeah, they've hit on this guy, and now I kind of talked about it before. You come into the season with plans, and then you develop them as you go. You don't stick with the same outline throughout the season. Now is when I think you have to look at it and say, this guy's going to be able to take away receivers. We're not going to need to help this guy. Let's kind of really get weird here on the other side and do some complex things and force the hand of teams to go away from their #1 receiver. This is what they used to do. Stephon Gilmore, Darrelle Revis, Aqib Talib, Ty Law. This is Bill Belichick's defenses at their best. When you have that real shutdown corner, and I don't think it's a coincidence Bill Belichick compared Christian Gonzalez's approach to Stephon Gilmore earlier this morning. Let's see what they do with it. But Gonzalez is passing all the tests. He looks like the real deal. And if they can build on it, this defense is only going to get better.
It's going to be really interesting when he gets to line up against Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, it's going to be the real test.
Because that's like, if they can getting ahead of ourselves here with Buffalo in a few weeks, but if they like Stephon Diggs has always been kind of the thorn in their side there. If they can get him to shut down Stephon Diggs, they might have a fighting chance against that offense. But yeah, he was just awesome, and as you said, it is like it was easy for him out there. There was that one like down the one Jets drive where they actually moved the ball and scored the touchdown. They tried to like target Wilson on back-to-back plays, and that first kind of whip route, he was just all over. And then I saw he was just like like talking to Garrett Wilson after and just laughing about it. So he was awesome. And as Danny points out, Gonzo, Defensive Rookie of the Year, he's moved up to third lone third place odds over on FanDuel at plus 750 for Defensive Rookie of the Year, behind only Jalen Carter and Will Anderson. So climbing those boards, but Christian Gonzalez has been awesome early on. And that depleted secondary, I thought Miles Bryant also had a really good game. He did have that pass interference penalty, but Bill singled out some of his plays that you might not have seen, in the TV copy, where he takes away Zach Wilson's first read and forces him a throwaway, forces him to go elsewhere. So I thought Bryant had another nice game here, playing on the outside again mostly.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup for him on Allen Lazard, and I thought he handled it well. So that's a good sign because they might need that. I guess we'll see when John Jones comes back, but it sounds like Jack Jones, Marcus Jones I mean, they're going to be out, sounds like at least through Halloween. So good sign to see that kind of performance from Miles Bryant. I guess I think Allen Lazard's a little overrated. I do, but I don't think he's a bad receiver by any means. I think he's a solid number 2 receiver. So Miles Bryant, especially just the body types, that big physical receiver for a guy like Miles Bryant to be able to hang with him is encouraging. I don't know how repeatable it is, but if it's something he can do, it'd be a game changer.
It's not like he's a speed receiver, which maybe against if you have him on Brandon Cooks next week in Dallas, that could be
that's going to be a little scary if they have to do that.
But yeah, he looked pretty good yesterday. But I thought like it all started like holding the Jets. It all starts with limiting their run game, and they were really good at that. A lot of that, base 3-4 defense. Anthony Jennings activated, has a big role right off the bat. He had a really good game, and they did lose some bodies though. Daniel Aquale and Devon Godchaux went out back-to-back plays, so we'll see their status. But the run defense was really good. I think the Jets were at 1.7 average per rush, and if you take that away and make Zach Wilson beat you, you saw what happened there. So after a maybe not so great performance in the run game against Miami, it was a nice kind of bounce back for Juwan Bentley and some of those guys up front, and getting Anthony Jennings in there was a big boost for that unit too.
They were good early. Like, not surprisingly, when Devon Godchaux and Daniel Aquale, their 2 defensive tackles, get hurt, they struggled. And that's when the Jets really started just kind of pounding the ball. Then the Patriots have to start putting more guys in the box, and the Jets start throwing it. We talked about this back in the summer, Brian. They don't have a ton of depth in terms of run-stopping defensive tackles. They have Barmore. He's more of a passing-down guy. Sam Roberts can play inside. Keon White can play inside. Lawrence Guy can play inside, but those guys are better on the edge. They don't really have another nose tackle. Maybe it's Jeremiah Farms on the practice squad, but I don't really know where he's at in terms of NFL readiness. This is something to watch now. If Godchaux and Aquale, but especially Godchaux, are going to miss time, I look at Carl Davis is on the Seahawks practice squad. If they can open up a roster spot somehow, whether it's somebody going on IR, maybe they cut somebody, I would call Carl Davis.
Yep.
Because they're going to need interior help against the run. They need a nose tackle, especially if those guys are going to miss time. So that's something I'd watch. I know some people are probably wondering about Marquand McCall as well, who they tried to sign. Be big to have him right now. I'm going to guess if he failed the physical back in, what was that, like 2-3 weeks ago? No, it's more than that now. It's probably like a month and a half ago.
Yeah, that was like right before roster cuts? Or?
Yeah, I would assume if he failed the physical so badly that they didn't even keep him in IR, they just said no thank you. I'm going to guess that he's not in condition to play now. But Carl Davis I would make that call.
Yeah. I was going to bring up McCall there, but probably might not be ready just a month after that. So we'll kind of see there. But yeah, they did start. I mean, the Jets had that one drive where I think they ran it like 6, 7, 8 straight plays, and they got some push there. And then once they started like passing the ball on first down and running the ball on second down, they found some success. So I thought it was, a better performance than Miami. Obviously, you held them to 30 something yards on 20 carries, but there was some push there late from the Jets. But the other big thing was once you stop the run, you get Zach Wilson under pressure, and he was under pressure on 47.5% of his dropbacks. Part of that was because he was holding the ball over 3 seconds and running for his life back there, trying to read a defense. But Christian Barmore had a really big game, 7 pressures. Judon Uche had 5 apiece, and it's just kind of the book on Zach Wilson, right? Send all these different pressures at him up front, can mix things up on the back end, and he's not going to beat you because he's playing like he has zero confidence and just doesn't want to make a mistake right now.
Bad quarterback, bad offensive line. They took advantage. I don't know how much weight we can put on it, just because again, they're not. I said this on the pregame show. It's not that I don't know if Zach Wilson's a starting caliber quarterback or not in the NFL. I don't know that Zach Wilson's an NFL caliber quarterback. Would you feel comfortable with him as your team's backup right now? I wouldn't.
No.
He might be the worst starting player in all of pro sports. He really might. The offensive line isn't great either. They were down bodies. Honestly, the whatever it was, 87-yard drive is more concern to me than anything. Can't let that happen. Can't let that happen. But I thought for the most part they did what they needed to do. They took care of business against Zach Wilson. That's really all you can ask in a game like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they played him so much. They had the book on him. You know what to do. And they went out and executed it, held him to 10 points. Obviously, that one drive was get back, look at that, correct some things there. But that was pretty much the defensive update there. I don't know any other. I had one thing for you. What do you think of Adrian Phillips? Just is not playing a lot of defense, and I know Peppers is playing really good. Kyle Duggar's playing really good, but Phillips played 6 snaps yesterday, and I think that was it just keeps decreasing as we go on. So why do you think there's just no Adrian Phillips in the defensive plan here?
There's better players on the field. Plain and simple. I think Adrian Phillips is a good player. It's a really deep safety room. I think there's better players on the field. Now, I'd like to see them give him more looks so they can move Jalen Mills out to corner. Probably asking for too much there, given this team's history, but there's better players on the field. Phillips is on the wrong side of 30. I don't remember exactly how old he is, but I'm not saying he's completely fallen off, but his game's probably declined a little bit compared to it was last year. He's 31. I think they just there's better options right now. And I don't think that means Phillips is a bad player, but I think there's better options.
Yep, because they played, Duggar 100% of the snaps, Peppers 95% of the snaps, so that seems where they're going just with those guys. And someone said, is he keeping him on special teams? Yeah, he played 18 special team snaps, still serving as that kind of personal protector now with Cody Davis still on the PUP list, so that's been more of his role here with special teams focus. So we can get to special teams unless you have any other defensive guys you wanted to highlight or anything else you saw in that game.
You said Peppers was excellent. I would just sort of reinforce that. He was really good.
He had that one play where
he blows up the screen.
Poor Randall Cobb just got blown up and ran through.
That's an unreal play by him. So I just thought he was really good again.
Yep, I agree. But last but not least, special teams. It was an eventful one, that's for sure. But Joe Cardona let me down, man. 2 high snaps on 2 missed field goals. Ryland made from 48, missed from then 48 in that long 57 that we talked about at the end of the half. Both of the misses were kind of high snaps. Rain, wind, it was kind of just crappy there at MetLife, but then they trust him. Bill said he had a lot of mental toughness. Good learning experience. He said the same thing. Ryland said the same thing after the game. Comes back, hits a big 48-yarder, which turns out to be, or 51-yarder, which turns out to be the game winner. If I can cash in my Chad Ryland game winner prediction from last week, even though it wasn't like a buzzer beater, I'll still take it. But they clean up that operation, right? Not what you expect from Joe Cardona, but you hope that's just because of the conditions.
Yeah, I talked about this. I don't think they did Chad Ryland right in this game. Between the bad snaps, I kind of already broke down that sequence at the end of the first half. I thought he didn't need to be attempting a 57-yard field goal there. I thought Bryce Behringer was really good though, and some people were asking why did he keep kicking the ball short. I think with the conditions, they didn't want to screw around with like kicking the ball inside the 5, and the wind blows that here or there, you get a weird bounce. I think the plan was for him to kick it a certain way, aiming for like the 15 and let it roll. And the reason I think that this isn't just rose-colored glasses, if you go back and watch, he drops the ball nose down.
Yeah,
and different angles that you drop the ball. Like you think of the punt being dropped, you're just dropping it like laces straight up, and it's parallel with the ground and all that. You can drop the ball at different angles for different kind of kicks, and that nose down kick a lot of the time gets referred to as like the pitching wedge or the approach wedge, right? Where you're just trying to put that thing straight up in the air, have it come straight down, and like you don't want that ball. That's a very controlled, it's a low power but very controlled kind of kick. I think that's what the plan was. It's not an easy kick to do, and he did it multiple times. So I thought Behringer was really good yesterday.
Yeah, he had 4 inside the 20 out of his 8, and I think it was conditions because even the longer ones, they were like these low, kind of more line drives. So we talked to some of the assistant coaches tomorrow, so maybe that'd be a good question for Cam Acord, get a little more insight on that. But yeah, I thought it was a good game from him. He leads the league in punts inside the 20. I don't know if you saw that, but he's been busy. He's been passing the test early on, and I don't know. Can we get Chad Ryland a field goal like under 40 yards here? Like that'd be nice going forward, right? So hopefully they get to move to a dome next week in Dallas. That would be nice. Maybe cleaner operations all around there, and we'll kind of see what that whole unit looks like. But any other last things you got? I think we pretty much hit on everything from that win, but any other things?
I do think we should talk about the big story in the NFL everybody's talking about. You go on Twitter, you can't not see it, and that's Josh McDaniels taking the field goal at the end of that game last night. What the hell was that?
Oh, Josh.
I want to pull up the stat, but there's like some talk about how the Raiders essentially can't fire Josh McDaniels.
They don't have the money.
They can't afford to do it, right? They have to essentially hire another coach, which they can't afford to do. But, oh, man, was that game brutal last night against what is a not very good Steelers team. So here it is. Opta Stats had this. I forget who owns Opta, but Opta Stats. Since the 2-point conversion was adapted in 1994, Brian, so this means basically since an 8-point game was a 1-score game, because 2-point conversion came from the USFL, was not always a thing. Since the 2-point conversion was adopted, the Raiders are the only NFL team to attempt a field goal in the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter when down by exactly 8 points with less than 5 yards to go for either a first down or a touchdown. 29 years. It had never happened. He did it twice. He did it twice. You get an all-time bailout call on and I'm not saying that like it was the right call, but like a stupid penalty from the Steelers.
What even was
he does it again?
What was the technical term on that penalty? Was that just roughness or?
No, it's the one they put in basically so you can't
jump over,
but like you can't. The actual wording is like you can't brace yourself on the blockers. Okay. And the guy puts his hand on the blocker's back to kind of elevate himself. You can't do that. But to all the people saying, oh, they needed 2 possessions anyway, this includes Josh himself. Oh, it was a 2-possession game anyway. You needed a touchdown, a field goal anyway. The difference is one of those possessions could have come in overtime. It wasn't a 2-score game. In that moment, you need to force overtime above all else. So I just thought that was absolute lunacy last night. I can't believe what that was. Yeah, and also now Jimmy Garoppolo's hurt. He got hurt twice in that game. He's hurt again. Patriots have the Raiders coming up in a few weeks, so that'll be an interesting situation to monitor.
And Derek Carr hurt. Patriots play them.
Derek Carr got hurt
too. So,
and the Cowboys suddenly, vulnerable or angry. I guess it's glass half full, glass half empty. But that was not a game they should have lost.
Yeah, you hope it's not like a big bounce back game from them here. I know they had a lot of injuries on their offensive line, so maybe I don't know how close those guys were, but that could be a big factor there. But yeah, that decision by Josh was something. And I'd say he'd be back in New England in a few weeks as an offensive analyst, but I guess they can't afford to fire him, so who knows what's going to happen there.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. He's been something everywhere but New England. That's something. But I think that'll do it from us today. Alex and I will be back on Thursday, I believe, to preview that Patriots at Cowboys Week 4 game as the Patriots look to improve to 2-2. But until then, you can follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth and go to 985thesportshub.com to read all his coverage from yesterday's Patriots game. And you can follow me on Twitter at @IamBrianHines and go to patspulpit.com to read all my coverage from yesterday's victory. Thank you all, as always, for tuning in, and we will see you guys later this week.